Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Nathan Rolfe, and I'm the president of the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces and your host for this segment. On behalf of the Tortora Brayda Institute and the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces, I would like to welcome you to this month's episode of our Cyber Workforce Series, where we speak with cyber professionals about their careers and journeys to help inform others on the diversity of paths within the cybersecurity industry and hopefully support you, the listener, on your own personal cyber career journey. Before we meet this month's guests, I'd like to share a little bit about the two organizations making this series possible, the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces and the Tortora Brayda Institute. The Association of U.S. Cyber Forces is a nonprofit that provides the voice for cyber professionals who serve in the military, government agencies, industry, and academia on specific cyber issues impacting national security. AUSCF is an advocate for positive change to policies and programs from the local to national that better serve our membership, develop and expand the cyber workforce, proactively address cyberspace threats, and help minimize gaps between the private and public sector cybersecurity efforts. If you would like to learn more or join AUSCF, please visit our website at www.auscf.org. The Tortora Brayda Institute is a nonpartisan public benefit institute focused on the convergence of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. As these technologies increasingly shape economies, governance, and public trust, their role is to bring together leaders across industry, government, and academia to develop the frameworks, partnerships, and talent needed to ensure that they are adopted responsibly, securely, and with accountability. Through their think tank for partnerships in AI and cybersecurity, they convene global experts to address one of the most urgent challenges of our time: how to build systems that are not only innovative, but trustworthy, resilient, and aligned with societal benefit. A critical part of that challenge is workforce readiness, as AI and cybersecurity continue to reshape industries and expand both opportunity and risk. The need for a workforce that is not only skilled, but prepared to operate in an environment defined by complexity, accountability, and digital risk has never been greater. If you are not currently a member of the Institute, we invite you to visit their website and learn more about how you can engage and contribute to this work. This cybersecurity workforce series is a part of a broader effort to close that gap, bringing together leaders and explore not just skills, but pathways, expectations, and evolving standards of professional responsibility in this space. AUSCF and TBI are excited to partner here because through this series and our broader work, we are focused on building a more prepared, more accountable, and more resilient workforce for the future. During today's discussion, please feel free to drop questions into the chat, and as time allows, we will attempt to weave in the answers throughout our program today. Your questions and feedback will directly shape this and future events. Today's guest is Amanda White. Amanda has an impressive track record of nearly 30 years in IT product development across the healthcare and retail sectors. She is an accomplished leader with a passion for customer-centric innovation. Having embarked on her journey as a software developer, she swiftly ascended through the ranks to application development management, into product delivery and product management roles. Amanda thrives on developing innovative retail and healthcare solutions. In addition to cultivating engaged and high-performing product teams, she also excels as an Agile coach and product management practice leader. She holds an MBA from North Park University and a bachelor's in computer science from Loyola, in addition to multiple professional certifications from the Project Management Institute, Scrum Alliance, and the International Consortium for Agile. Amanda, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, so let's we've been doing this workforce series for a couple years now, and you're actually our first guest that we've had on here with a primarily software development background. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. What got you into this career field, and was that always your plan from the get-go?
So that's actually a really great question. I way back from when I was in grade school, we had a very, I would call it primitive computer science class back when I was like in second grade. And we had Apple computers and we were learning the Apple basic languages, the logo language, things like that. And it was just very, interesting to me. And I had a teacher who kind of saw the spark in me when I would participate in that class. And she offered me an opportunity to come in early and help with, setting up for her classes, stay late after school, help with her classes. And that just kind of fueled the fire for me. I knew way back when at age 8 that I wanted to be a computer programmer. I didn't know exactly what type of work I wanted to do, but it was definitely like, this is what I'm going to do. I zeroed in on it and I really never looked back, never looked at anything else. So it was kind of always the plan for me to go down that path, and I just stuck with it.
That's awesome. We don't. Most of the folks we have on here can't trace their career path back to age 8, saying, "Yeah, this is what I wanted to be when I grew up," and then followed through with it. So that's awesome. And I do want to apologize. I'm having looks like camera issues on my end, so I'm just going to be a disembodied voice. Looks like for the rest of this. Hopefully, it doesn't distract too much for the listeners. So let's talk a little bit more about your education. So you went a formal route with a computer science degree. In a lot of areas in cyber and IT, we're seeing some shifts towards having experience over degrees, where the degree isn't as important as actually having that hands-on experience. Did you see that as the case as you were moving through your industry as well?
I've actually seen it both ways. I think there's always something to be said for having the degree, having, the training, the schooling, to kind of teach you the mechanics of how to do a certain craft. I will say that, along the way, back then it was very, kind of like the funnel. You have computer science and they teach you a bunch of classes related to it. There were no like specialties or anything at that moment. And you just kind of went through the degree program and, towards graduation. Lots of people that were in my field about 30 years ago when I started, a lot of them did have degrees in that field. And I think that back then there was a lot of weight put on that. That if you wanted a job, you needed to have the degree that went with it. However, a lot of the individuals that I've worked with, even in the industry back then, all the way up till today, some of the best programmers that I've worked with are people that don't even have computer backgrounds. Even with UX, UI, and design, some of the designers I've worked with, the most creative people I've ever seen, have no degree in computers or whatever. They have backgrounds in design, of course, but a lot of them started out with degrees in, being teachers or history majors or something like that. And then they decided they wanted a career pivot and moved into something else. So, I've seen it both ways that, I truly believe it still, that there's value in degrees, but, I do feel like there's a certain point at which, you have the degree, you have the mechanics, but there is real world experience that you have to marry with that in order to continue to push your career in this particular sector.
So that the focus on creativity is interesting. We're very used to seeing a lot more of the technical skill sets coming in. That's obviously a much soft skill kind of concept. Have you seen basically a benefit in? I mean, you kind of described it. Most of the folks that you've seen come in to have that creativity coming in, is that something that employers are actually looking for, or is that just like a lucky benefit that you happen to get those folks in the job?
So I think there's two sides to that, because when you talk about it in terms of like UX, UI, and in the software development area, I do feel like there's this level of creativity that comes along with understanding the human experience and what is best user practice, and how does a specific person, when they encounter an application or a website or something, how they view it, how they see it, how they interact with it. And that creativity kind of pairs with, the practical side of it as well. As far as programming goes, on the engineering side, I would convert the word creativity into innovation, and the need for that innovative mindset, being able to solve problems differently, and maybe more efficiently. You could call it creativity, but in today's world, innovation is a big thing, and I feel like it's an important skill set to have, to be able to kind of come in and be able to look at a problem and determine, what is the best solution for this? How do we go about doing that? And how do we use the technologies that we have around us to make that happen? And of course, in product development, your engineers, your UX designers, and your product managers all work in lockstep to develop that solution. So it is tapping into all those different skill sets, the innovative skill sets, the creativity, and the strategic side from the product management perspective to really drive a product forward and make it successful.
Is that innovation, that quality of a programmer, whether they're doing any kind of development, is that something that's teachable, or is that really just gained through the experience on the job?
Going back to what we were saying earlier about the degrees, one of the things that as far as like schooling for me, it didn't necessarily prepare me for everything in my early career. The mechanics were there. Like, how do I use this language to do X, Y, Z? But there's still a level of getting to really understand the languages that you work with, the tools that you work with, the technology that you have, the technology sets that you have, to really bring forth that creativity, that innovation in solving problems. I don't necessarily feel like innovation is something that you can, buy like shrink wrapped box on a shelf. That's something that it kind of comes along with, future experience and understanding those technologies and using them in different ways. And then I think as time goes on, like the light bulb goes on in the head, and you determine like, oh, there's different ways that I can do things with this. It helps fuel the innovation. I'm not sure that that's something that you can specifically train for. I think that it comes with time and experience in working with those different technologies.
All right. It's great information. So like a mentorship kind of role, I think would be beneficial, especially in like teams like what you're used to running. Does that help with kind of bringing that out in some of your younger employees?
Yeah, mentorship is always, I think a positive in any person's career. I've done quite a bit of it as a mentee, and then I've done quite a bit of it as a mentor for others. I'm actually involved in our mentoring program for my university that I graduated from for my undergrad, and helping other students who are coming out of their programs right now, getting them launched into different careers, that are kind of in that IT space. But yeah, I think that there's, definitely, different ways to kind of approach, where you want to go. And, mentoring is definitely, one piece of it. I do feel that your product teams are great places to kind of develop a lot of that innovation, for your, to kind of push your career forward as well. I worked with a lot of really talented programmers over the years and building different types of applications and whatnot. But when I really got into product development and working with, side by side with UX designers and engineers, that was when I really, when you pull in all these different minds, they say like 10 heads are better than one. When you pull in all these different people, and looking at a problem, and you get into a conference room and a whiteboard, and you have that psychological safety to really just say whatever is on your mind, whatever idea you have, whether it's, seemingly awesome or seemingly silly, right? Everybody puts it out on the table and they build upon it, like a jam session for musicians, and you start seeing things come to life. But having all those different minds in the room, even at various levels, junior engineers, senior engineers, junior designers, senior designers, like people at all levels, there's something to learn from every single one of them. And that's when I've seen some of the best, most creative solutions of my career appear, is really just making space in that moment for innovation and creativity to come forward in solving a problem. And it's been, mind-blowing what we've been able to create as a result of that.
I really love that jam session kind of analogy. I think a lot of folks that aren't involved in software development, they have this mental image of somebody sitting in a dark room with a big gulp of Mountain Dew and some Cheetos, just cranking out code. I mean, you really emphasize that concept that no, this is a team effort. It's the band, right? Nobody's as good as everybody, and I really like that. So I want to kind of pull thread on that a little bit, because you've actually built a lot of people skills along the way with the technical skills in your career, gotten into the management, really embraced, like I said, the soft skills that we talked about. Was that something that you had to do to continue to grow, or is that something that you personally sought out and said, I want to be more in that team leadership role and working with the teams?
So that's actually a really great question, because I at one point I wanted to kind of move my career in a different direction. And I had a manager that I worked for at the time. He brought me into his office and he said, I think you should go apply for this team manager job. And I looked at him and I said, you're crazy. I appreciate your support of that, but you're crazy. There's no way on God's green earth that they would ever put me in a manager role. I'm going to be, a heads down programmer for the rest of my career. So I appreciate your support, but I don't think that, that's the right move for me. And his advice to me was, well, go apply and go through the process anyway, because even if you don't get the job, you have the experience of having gone through it. And then maybe at some point down the road, you'll change your mind. Well, as I went through that interview process, they ended up giving me the job. And, working with people in a leadership capacity was kind of always something that even in my younger years, I enjoyed working with. But when I actually got into that manager position as a young, team manager, young leader of software developers, I had to kind of figure out ways that I could help them, the ways that I could mentor them. What did I need to do as a leader to partner with them to help them grow their careers? And it just became a passion of mine. I think probably in the 30 years that I've been in IT, I've probably spent, 22, 23 of them in a management capacity of some sort. And, working with someone one-on-one, coaching, mentoring, even if, it was just a matter of, being a place for them to come and bounce ideas off of, or if they were really struggling with something, being someone that they could go to just have that open conversation without fear of being judged, or, that my manager is going to downgrade me in some way or think that I'm not good enough for the job or whatever. Just to be able to have those open conversations with people really kind of fueled, my desire to want to help people in that capacity. And it's kind of always been, a passion of mine. I wouldn't have spent 20 plus years doing it if I didn't enjoy it. And in the years that I've stepped away here and there to develop myself into different roles along the way, and then gone back into management, at a later time, just being able to have that ability to, move back and forth and move in and out to continue to develop myself has been a positive in being able to help people, because now I can say I've been in both the individual contributor seat as well as the management seat, and be able to more effectively guide people, through their careers and where they want to go and what skills, they should develop along the way based on my own personal experience.
That's awesome. I think I detected a little bit of trepidation about trying to get into the management field with the "you're crazy" comment that you mentioned, but it's definitely glad that some of you are able to overcome. We see so much within the cyber career field that interpersonal skills challenges, the soft skills of leadership, the just ability to interact with others on a team are definitely challenges for a lot of folks that are in these fields. Do you have any recommendations for folks that are struggling with some of those aspects and how to overcome them and improve?
I had a lot of training classes as I was kind of coming up, from being a team leader into being a team manager to being a senior manager. Along the way, certain things, communication skills, written communication skills, oral communication skills, presentation skills, writing skills. Writing skills, I think, as a thanks to my sophomore high school year English teacher who pounded the technical way of writing into me way back then. It's something that I carried forward, but professional writing is much different than writing about Shakespeare and Charlotte Bronte and everybody else, so having to learn those skills, through those classes, and then just finding opportunities to apply them. I look at every single email I write as a place to demonstrate, those written communication skills. Public speaking skills, that's another one. Mentoring skills. There's just been a whole myriad of different types of they call them soft skills, but they're really essential skills. Things that you need to do to be able to just work with people. I've had quite a few programmers that I've worked with either side by side on teams or people that have reported to me that really needed to develop those skills. They were great programmers, but collaboration abilities, communication abilities, presentation abilities, all those things were things that they had to work on. And, I think that's part of being a manager in that leadership role is your responsibility to help them develop those skills. Obviously, that development is a two-way street. They have to want to do it. But giving them opportunities to demonstrate it. And then ultimately maybe giving them that pedestal to showcase themselves on, to show that growth. And I think that that approach has really helped, a lot of people. I think the biggest soft skill in terms of communication that I have seen programmers struggle with is layman's writing, to be honest. You have programmers who are, extremely amazing behind the keyboard. They're technical wizards. They can put anything into technical language, but then when you have to try to explain it to a business user or somebody who's not technical, you lose them, because if all you understand how to communicate is technology, they're not going to understand the jargon. They're not going to understand the acronyms. They're not going to understand any of it unless you can break it down as you're talking to them and putting it into very simplistic terms, not to say that they're not intelligent, but putting it into terms that they're truly going to understand. If they've never studied computer science, they've never been an engineer, they've never written code, a lot of this stuff is going to go right over their heads. So you have to be able to figure out how to develop those skills to get to their level and to be able to verbally communicate it or write it. And I've had quite a few folks that I've had to coach through that. And they became very skilled in being able to translate those things for non-technical individuals. And that, I think, is an absolute necessary ability that any person who's trying to get into software development, you're gonna encounter those scenarios. And you're going to need to be able to have that skill to be able to break things down into very layman's terms, whether it's verbally or in writing. So that's definitely a place to look for training classes, webinars, tips, techniques, whatever you can find on the internet to help you build skills in that area.
Awesome. I really, I like what you said kind of early on in that answer. You use every email that you send as an opportunity to essentially demonstrate your proficiency. I would say practice and hone your skills. That idea of you're always operating at the best you can be, I think is a huge point to take away from that. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. I want to kind of circle back a little bit more into, focus of this workforce series, which is a lot into the cyber world, the cybersecurity aspect of it. And so, that's generally an underlying theme of what we do. Software development for a long time has been separate But just from our pre-show conversations that we were having about DevSecOps and other things, how have you seen changes come into your industry of software development, digital product development, and integration of cybersecurity, as far as what you've had to adapt to and where that trends are going?
Yeah, so not to completely date myself, although I've thrown it out at least twice that I've been in the industry 30 years, but there was a time in my career where everything was SDLC, everything was very sequential, requirements, design, coding, testing, push it out to prod, that kind of thing. And then eventually, along the way, as part of that process, you would have to consult with various, security folks and risk engineers and things like that to make sure that whatever you were writing, do a code review and tell me what you think. As things have evolved from a project management world to a product management world, and the advent of Agile and Scrum, and different methodologies for doing things faster and more efficient, it has really changed the platforms of technologies that go along with it. And having moved from project management into product management and that mindset thinking of, I have dates and deadlines and this project plan that I have to meet, all these milestones and things, to let's focus on what's the best solution that's going to meet the base level requirements for something that we're trying to build here to prove that this product can exist and it does its job. To what are those technologies along the way that are going to help us get there in that very quick, agile fashion. And that has brought about, things like the CI/CD pipeline, the incorporation of the different types of coding environments and whatnot, and being able to kind of push code in, have continuous builds, have continuous automated testing running in the background, and being able to, along the way, incorporate into the pipeline those tools that will scan for code vulnerabilities and things like that before something makes it to production. It has ultimately raised the quality of everything that we've produced into production. And that's a huge win. And it sure beats the days of getting called into a meeting for a production issue that everything's on fire. And now you have to, dig into it and, basically start at the bottom level to figure out what's the problem. There's all sorts of tools out there now that'll help you figure out where you have your faults, and how you actually go about, fixing them, and getting that rapid turnaround to a repair, if you will, and getting it pushed back out to production. There has been so much of that technology that has been infused into the product development space. And honestly, it was quite refreshing. Somebody who came from the world of, everything needed to be sleeves up, and hands-on from scratch, everything, to be able to have these automated tools to do things for you, to save time, to save that development time, and be able to look for those things that used to take hours of time to comb through, to determine whether, are we confident that this piece of code that's going to go out isn't going to cause a problem. And when you work in healthcare and retail sectors, that's hugely important because it could interrupt somebody getting their proper health care, whether that's a prescription or insurance approvals or something like that. Or in retail spaces, that could be downtime in a store and somebody's not ringing the register, which means your company's losing money. All of those things, they have significant impacts. And now that we have those tools that have really merged the world of development and, security together, it's made a huge difference in the quality of what goes out and the speed in which we can do it.
All right. We are actually running up against our hard deadline here, which is great because this has been an awesome conversation. So I want to, I guess, kind of wrap things up then. We're on this program, we're looking at ways to help inform anyone that's looking to get into these career fields. So as our first foray into the software development side of the house, if you had any recommendations for someone that was looking to break into software development or looking to expand in their career field in that area, whether that's specific education, certifications, types of experience to pursue, what would you pass on to someone that's looking to follow in your footsteps?
So, way back when I was in college, I had an advisor who gave me some really great feedback and hints about how you launch yourself into a career. And I absolutely have carried those with me throughout my entire existence in the IT world. And it's something that I've always mentored people on. And that is to spend your time doing your research. Like if you have an interest in a certain area of computer science or some type of development or even cybersecurity or something like that, AI, do the research, go out and look at websites for companies that maybe interest you. Look at their job postings. What are they hiring for? What sort of skills are they looking for? Are they looking for certifications? Are they looking for degrees? Are they looking for certain specializations? Way back when I was in college, it was computer science as a whole. And as I said before, there's a collection of classes that you can choose from that all roll up into computer science, and that was your degree. Nowadays, your degree programs have a lot of specialization. You have data science, you have AI, you have cyber, all these different areas, not just engineering, and figure out perhaps which one of those areas are of the greatest interest to you. Look at the job postings that are out there in terms of what these employers are looking for, and then determine whether you're still in college, what classes are available to you that you can get access to take those courses, to make them part of your degree program before graduation, or even afterwards. Are there any sort of certification programs that you can go to that are focused in those spaces that you can get access to, new and updated technical information that's going to help you build those skills. And then certainly, if you're in the workforce already and you're trying to break into these areas, I've always encouraged people networking within your own organization, reaching out to different leaders and saying like, this is your area. I know you work in the cyberspace and security or whatever. I have an interest in this type of work that I'd like to do, or I'd like to take a little bit of a pivot and work in this space. Do you have any stretch assignments? Do you have anything that I could potentially take on that I could consider as, projects or experience to kind of start building my portfolio in that area? And then eventually, if you have supportive leaders who allow you to kind of stretch in different ways, then you can start kind of accumulating, that experience and background. Certainly looking to, accumulate, if you will, within your portfolio, degree programs, certification programs, any type of, industry work, maybe freelance, maybe internships, whatever you can get your hands on. Those can all be things that you can put forth under your resume or your profile or whatever when attempting to apply for a role that would be focused in that space. So it's kind of a progression. You have to build things a little bit as you go. And then certainly, like if you're internal to a company, go knock on a leader's door and say, hey, I have an interest in working in this space. I would love to learn something new. Do you have any potential openings? Is there anybody that I could partner with? To try to get my foot in the door and move in that direction. That was literally how I moved from project management into product management. I had done project management, SDLC development for a huge chunk of my career. And I had seen that a lot of the industry was starting to change and evolve and moving towards that product-led model. And I wanted to get into product management. And I reached out to another leader within my company and I said, hey, I've got a lot of development experience. I just want to be able to practically learn the methodology and be able to practice it. So would you be willing to give me that chance? And he said yes, and he brought me in, and I literally trained, new skills. That was a moment where I stepped out of being a manager and moved into an individual contributor role to work on me and building my skills, and then being able to develop products and start adding those accomplishments to my profile of the work that I've done in that space to be able to establish myself as someone who has product management experience or a leader in the product management experience. And really, at that point, that was when they came back to me and said, how would you like to lead a team of product managers while being a product manager? And I said, absolutely. It was the best of both worlds, being able to pull in, that coaching and mentoring, side of being a leader that I loved so much, and still being able to build products. So that was a huge win. And it was probably one of the most fulfilling things that I've done in my career in those 30 years.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I love the idea of actually going out and seizing opportunities, looking for them deliberately, and not just waiting for them to happen. So that's a great piece of advice. Appreciate it, Amanda. I want to thank you so much for being on here today. We are actually a little bit over our time, so we're gonna have to start shutting down. But thank you again for coming on and sharing your experience with the community, your journey, and what you've done, and kind of giving us a little bit of insight into a different aspect of the workforce than we've focused on before. We'd like to go ahead and put your LinkedIn profile up on the screen for our viewers. If anyone would like to reach out to you with any follow-on questions, actually take advantage of that mentoring skills that you do have, which would be, I think, awesome for a lot of folks that are listening. For those that are watching and listening to our discussion today, especially live, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Today's discussion will be posted on the Tortora Brayda Institute and AUSCF websites. Again, the Tortora Brayda Institute and Association U.S. Cyber Forces are committed to reshaping and empowering a diverse collaboration and developing the cyber workforce. You are the reason why we do what we do. As far as the workforce goes, we do hope today's conversation has helped you on your cyber professional development path. And on behalf of the Tortora Brayda Institute and AUSCF, I want to say thank you again, and we look forward to having you join us for our next Cyber Workforce Series discussion.